Hi friends, Shayla here. So let's talk about everything I read this last week. I've been doing weekly wrap-ups for a little while now. I really like doing this because I can talk a little more in depth about what I'm reading. And again, I have been reading a ton. So this just gives me some freedom to do that without feeling like I'm going to take hours of your time. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I only have 2 volumes of manga that I read this week. It was a really light manga week for whatever reason. I was really enjoying my books. I was doing lots of audiobooks and coloring while I was audiobooking. So it was just a moment. It was a thing. I was in love with what I was doing, and I'm going to plug in my camera just to make sure we don't run out of battery power because my battery's been running out a lot quicker lately. First up, we're going to talk about The Witch and the Beast by Kozuke Satake. This is volume 1. This is darker and a little bit gorier than I was expecting it to be. So I don't think this will remain in my collection. However, I do think this is a really good, interesting series. We're dealing with witch hunters, essentially, and there is one of our characters has had a curse placed upon them by a witch, so they're searching out that specific witch to get the curse removed. They can't seem to find said witch, and it's kind of their journey in doing so and witch hunting along the way, while also taking care of other paranormal-centered things. So we have a mage and a beast, we can say. And it's really interesting. It's really just intriguing. But the gore factor is very borderline for me, and I do think it's going to get gorier as the series goes on. So I'm not going to continue collecting this one. However, I did give this volume 4 stars because it really was quite good. But I just know myself well enough that it's going to cross the line at some point and I'm going to end up dropping it. So I might as well pass this volume on to a good friend of mine that I think will enjoy the series as a whole a lot better and put this in a home where it will get a lot more love than it will here at mine, because I know my husband's not into that. I already kind of talked to him about that. So though this is fantastic, I will not be continuing this series, but I am sending it on to a fellow YouTuber, so it won't go away forever. You'll see this volume on another channel. It'll be great. But if this does sound intriguing to you and you can handle a little bit of gore, then I say definitely pick it up and give it a try. I'm glad I tried it so that I know for sure, but I'm 95% sure this is going to cross a line that I'm not going to be okay with. So I'm going to let this one go. But the story is incredibly intriguing, so I might just pick my friend's brain and avoid the gory parts and figure out what happens later. The other volume of manga that I read this week was Haikyuu volume 42. I got approved for the NetGalley arc of this one. I have already read these chapters as I've read the series through its entirety via Shonen Jump. But my friends at Viz were kind enough to give me this arc digital copy, and this one really I love because Hinata's confronting this person on the court like him in his present time that he admires throughout this game, and there's something really serious that happens at the end of this game for end of this volume for Hinata, and it's kind of eye-awakening for our character, and it's amazing. I love the way Furudate Sensei took care of this series. I feel like every choice that was made was the right choice. I love this series with so much of my being. I've been rewatching it again because the new series is going. So I'm just like reliving everything, and I love this series. I cannot wait till we get something else by Furudate. It's very heavily hinted through the end of Haikyuu that there's another series kind of in the works. I don't think it'll be sports again. I think it will be something different, but they could go sports again. I don't know. But all I know is I love the series. Please check out Haikyuu if you haven't, whether it's the anime or the manga, whatever. I do have to say the newer art style that's more akin to the manga art style hasn't been bothering me as much in part 2 of season 4. So it's jarring when you first see it, but you get used to it pretty quickly, and it's not so bad. It does feel like what you read, so there's that. let's get on to the books. So I've got a few physical copies and then everything else is digital. So let's talk about the physical ones first. First up, let's talk about The Shrike in the Shadows by Chantal Gaudry and A.M. Wright. This is book 1 in the Witch of Crum series, or Krum. This is a Hansel and Gretel retelling. Sadly, I did not enjoy this. I ended up giving this 2 stars. And I hate saying that because I love Chantal Gaudry as an author, but I don't think the duo worked very well because it did feel like our characters were bipolar at times. So I talk about this in great depth with April in the Tell It Again live show, so I will leave that linked in the corner. So if you want my full spoilery detailed thoughts, you can go there. But essentially, I'm really sad, but this book isn't for me. I'm not going to be continuing with the series. I'm not even going to keep this in my collection. I'm going to send it somewhere where hopefully somebody else will enjoy it a little bit more. But all I can say is Hans is the biggest jerk on the planet, and there was a decision made toward the end of this novel that none of the 3 of us that read it all together, which was me, April, and Lindsay, agreed with. Like, we all did not enjoy this one. And, you know, sometimes one of us will enjoy something, but another one won't. But yeah, we all didn't enjoy this one. So sadly, this one's a miss for us. But do check out Chantal Gaudry's other works because I've really enjoyed all of her others that I've read. Next, I read Queen of the Conquered by Case and Calendar. I buddy read this with Mel over at Mel to the Any, and I had a really good time with this book. I found it very interesting and intriguing. I'm definitely looking forward to book 2. But in this one, we're following a woman named Sigourney Rose. Basically, everything was stolen from her when she was young, and she has slowly been working her way towards revenge for her family. And so they end up sequestered on this island for reasons in the storm season, because it's a Caribbean-based fantasy. And it becomes a little and then there were none. So there's murders of all these people happening, and there's a reason for it. And it's just really, really good. The writing is amazing. I will definitely be picking up more Case and Calendar in the future. This is my first Case and Calendar I've ever read. Most people loved Felix Ever After earlier this year. I haven't gotten to that one yet. I haven't even physically picked that one up yet. But I really enjoyed this. I'm definitely going to be picking up the sequel, which is coming out early December. And I'm kind of glad that I waited to read it this long, because now I don't have to wait long for the sequel. And yes, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'd recommend picking it up if you haven't. And, you know, you're supporting authors that we should all be supporting by reading this book. And the story is intriguing to boot on top of it. And I had a great time reading it. So definitely pick up Queen of the Conquered if you haven't. Next we have The Virgin and the Rogue by Sophie Jordan. Now, if you watched last week's wrap-up, you know I hated Sophie Jordan's debut. But this one I gave 4 stars. There is an element of cheating within this novel that I didn't really enjoy, so I'm going to preface that right there. That's why I got 4 stars. But the rest of the story really is quite fantastic. We're following Charlotte in this one. Charlotte is engaged to this mouse of a man who doesn't really make her happy, but it's like her childhood best friend kind of a thing. And then a man named Kingston enters her life, and she actually starts to feel something for Kingston. So she's worried because she's like, I'm engaged, I'm betrothed, this shouldn't be happening, blah, blah, blah. And they start to engage in a physical relationship where she hasn't had anything physical with her betrothed, and she can't even bring herself to kiss her betrothed, where she wants to hide in dark corners and do all the things with Kingston. So because of the element of cheating, I knocked off a star, but I can tell Sophie Jordan's writing has significantly improved, and I ended up enjoying this one quite a bit. The only part that I didn't enjoy was that it was centered around cheating. Outside of that, like, their chemistry on page was fantastic. I really enjoyed all of that. There's a part of this plot I forgot to mention. So Charlotte has a sister named Nora, who's the main protagonist of the next book. But Nora is like a medical person. She loves to make concoctions to help people feel better. So she changed the concoction to help Charlotte with like her menses, and it ends up making her hornier than horny, and she ends up hooking up with Kingston kind of that way. So on that note, now we have Nora in the Duke effect, who, you know, wants to test out this concoction on a man to see if it has similar effects and things like that. But she, you know, is brought into a situation where she ends up in contact with Constantine because Constantine was writing her father and getting medical advice. But what Constantine didn't know is that for the last few years, he was actually writing Nora, and they got very personal in their correspondence. And so once Nora comes clean, once she's there in person, like, and he's in her home, he gets really upset. He leaves. He doesn't trust her. So there's this trust issue going on, and Nora's doing everything in her power to keep him from exposing her. And along the way, he ends up taking the concoction and things happen. And there's a slight element of cheating in this one too. So I know that it was more, Constantine was expected to take care of this particular woman that his cousin was like betrothed to be married to, but the cousin died. So by default, the next heir is supposed to step up and take care of that. But she's not really feeling it. He's not really feeling it because he has a thing for Nora. So there is that kind of thing wrapped up in everything. But I ended up enjoying this one again. So 4 stars. I think The Rogue Files is a much stronger series for Sophie Jordan. But for whatever reason, like, these two had a little bit of that, like, almost cheating element to them. And so I wasn't the biggest fan of that, which is why they got 4 stars. But I do have the other books in the Rogue Files, and so I do plan on reading those relatively soon, and I think I'll end up enjoying them. All right, let's jump into the rest of the digital reads because I have no more physical ones. Really quick, let's talk about Barbarians Mate. So this is Hayden and Josie's story. So at the end of the previous book, we see Josie running around to figure out who her mate is because her IUD has finally fallen out. So she has the ability to find a mate. And she finally ends up, you know, going around to all the single guys. And the only one that makes her cooey sing is Hayden. And Hayden's not a bad dude. He was surly and grumpy, sure. But it was one of those things where she was constantly picking at him. Like, Josie as a character was the hardest sell for me on this book. I did not enjoy Josie's character for the first 60% of this book. Then she finally pulls her butt out of her head out of her butt and figures things out from there. But there's a point pretty early on in the novel where Hayden kind of bears his soul as to why he is the way he is. And Josie acknowledges that he's been vulnerable with her, but she still kind of treats him like dirt. And that didn't sit well with me. So I ended up giving this one 2 stars because I couldn't handle Josie very well. This isn't going to stop me from reading the series, however. I just did not enjoy Josie as a character. The rest of the book I thought was great. It's just she was so bad and so annoying. Well, really it's like a 3-star because she's really okay once she stops being a brat. Because she has in her head how things are supposed to go, and because it's Hayden, that's not it, and it was just obnoxious. So Josie as a character I did not like and did not enjoy, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Outside of Josie's character, like the actual plot, and Hayden's character, I really, really ended up enjoying. So that's why I gave it 3. Moving on, we have The Christmas Backup Plan by Lori Wilde. Now, this is more a road trip book than a Christmas book. I mean, it does take place around Christmas time, and there are Christmas activities going on, but I wouldn't call it primarily a Christmas book. I would call it primarily a road trip book. So in this one, we're following Aria and Remy. They've been enemies for a long time, but they have to drive to go do this wedding for the mayor's child, or a senator's child, I think. And so they go on this long road trip together. They set up the wedding together. Obviously, sparks fly, things happen. And the reason why they're not together is a little cliche. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. But if you're looking for a good Christmas book, this isn't really a good Christmas book. It's a good book that takes place around Christmas time. So there's that. And I did end up enjoying it for the most part. As I said, I don't really read a lot of road trip books, but maybe I should, because that element of the story, like the close proximity, the hotel, like all of that, I ended up really enjoying. So I think I need to seek out a few more of those. So next up, I listened to Culty by Mariana Zapata, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Now, this is one of my least favorite Mariana Zapatas. All of my others have been 4.5 or 5 stars. So I'm not saying Culty's a bad book. What I'm saying is Culty is very hot and cold in the beginning, and it was almost too extreme for me, so I struggled with Culty's character in the beginning. But once things got moving, about middle of the book, I ended up starting to really enjoy it and understanding him a little bit better, and things continue to move and progress, and I ended up really enjoying it by the end of the series, by the end of the book, I should say. And so the enemies to lovers part of it was a little too extreme for me. And, you know, he would be her best friend one minute and be a total dick to her the next. Like, I struggled with Culty in the beginning. But Sal as a character, I really loved. I loved, like, her homey family kind of feeling to her. And, yeah, she doesn't tell her family necessarily what's going on, but she doesn't necessarily hide it from them either. I mean, she's just herself, and I gotta appreciate a character that's just themselves. So all in all, I did enjoy Culty. It is not my favorite Mariana Zapata by any means, but it's still a really good, really solid book if you like slow burn romances. I mean, Mariana Zapata is the queen of slow burn. With the exception of Under Lock, which is another Mariana Zapata that I listened to. In this, we're following Dex and Iris. And in this, Dex owns a tattoo shop. Iris gets a job there, but Dex is also part of a motorcycle club in which Iris's brother Sonny is a member. So we have, you know, motorcycle club business centered around her dad, actually, and the douche canoe that he is. And then we've got Dex, who owns his tattoo shop, and, you know, she's like a virgin, of course, and she's not tatted up anywhere, but she's gone through a lot of tough stuff on her own. It's pretty candid early on. She is a cancer survivor. So we're not dealing with her sickness, but some of the after effects, like she's got scarring on her arm from all her cancer treatments and things. And so she like wears sweaters to cover that up because she just doesn't want questions and doesn't want pity. And it was a really interesting book, but this is also the steamiest Mariana Zapata book I've read. Like, they're getting it on way earlier than any other Mariana Zapata book I've read, and it was really good. Again, I'm giving this one 4.5 stars. I ended up really having a good time with it. I liked Locke's protectiveness pretty early on, but I don't mind an alpha guy, and Locke is definitely an alpha. So if you don't like alpha, don't read Under Locke. But yeah, I ended up really enjoying this one a lot, and I would recommend checking it out. This is one I haven't heard many people talk about. I'm sure a lot of people don't like Dex as a character, so I can understand why people wouldn't like it, but apparently it's my jam, so there we are. Next up, I finished everything that was available in the Side Changeling and Side Changeling Trinity series on Audible Escape, because Audible Escape goes away at the end of the week, and I'm so sad, but... So first up, we have Allegiance of Honor. This is kind of a wrap-up of the Side Changeling series. So we get all the characters that we've met, and they're kind of dealing with all of the accumulating effects of 14 other books in this book. And it was really well done, really well handled. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. And I really liked the resolution of that book, and to start off the Side Changeling Trinity series. Now let's talk about the Trinity series. So first up, we have Silver Silence, which is the first book. So in this one, we're following Silver, who is Caleb Krychek from the Side Changeling series assistant. So she kind of takes care of all of that stuff for him. And she ends up being pursued by a man named Val. Val is a bear shifter. he is the alpha of the bear shifters in their area, and he has been enamored with Silver for a while. So after Silver has an attack put on her, he takes her to his bear den with his clan and protects her. And she gets to meet the baby bear gangsters, who are like the bear cubs that are just like rambunctious and play tricks on people. And I loved the dynamic of the bear clan. I want a lot more books with the bear clan. I could hang out with the bear clan all day long. I really liked Val a lot. He's just that laid back, chill character, but he'll get defensive when he needs to. Silver responds to like all of these accidents and tragedies, and so Val was right there with her, like helping her do these things, and I just really admired him as a character. And Silver really grew on me. I mean, she was very, very shy, very quiet, very cold, but man, I really, really liked this book. It might be one of my favorite side-changing books ever because I loved Val so much. So if Neilani Singh ever sees this, please write more with the Bear Pack. I really want more with the Bear Pack. Okay, moving on to the next one, which is Ocean's Light. Now, this one I did not love quite as much, just because this one was a harder sell overall for me. I know there are a lot of people who really hated this, but I just didn't enjoy this one as much. So this one is Bowen, who's the leader of the Human Alliance, and a woman named Kaya, who is a water-based creature shifter. They keep that withheld for a long time, like the kind of shifter that she actually is, which is why I'm not going to mention it. But if you pay attention, it's pretty obvious as to the type of shifter that she is. I really enjoyed the way that reveal happened. I thought it was really sweet. In this one, Bowen had made a choice to have an implant put in his brain to protect him from the Sai being able to read his mind. And like, I understand his reasons why, but he was just very extreme in a lot of ways. So I had some struggles with him as a character. But I really loved Kaya, and I really liked getting to know the Black Sea Changeling group better. They're a worldwide organization as opposed to like a local like clan or pack where they're all like close. So they're spread out all over the world, and so they have people checking in and out, and so obviously they have a mole and things are going on, and it ended up being an interesting plot. So I still ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. I just did not enjoy Bowen as a character very much. So that's how we ended up at that rating. And then last but not least on this list, we have Wolfrain. Now, this one was actually a really, really sweet one. So we have a woman named Memory who was basically kidnapped as a child by this serial killer dude. And she basically like kept him in check most of the time, because there was a lot of nothingness in him, and so she fed him emotions. And she's a type of like medical grade Sai, and it's really interesting the kind of Sai that she is. But she ends up with Alexi from the Snow Dancer pack, so we're dealing with the wolves again. We spend a lot of time with the wolves. I would have much rather had this based around the Bear Pack, obviously, because I love the Bear Pack. But for Memory's character, it made much more sense for her to be with someone like Alexi. And the way this all played out, I really enjoyed. I know there's a book 4. I just haven't had an opportunity to listen to it yet because I was trying to get as much Audible Escape done as I could. But I've got one more from Audible Escape I'm going to listen to, and then I'm just going to go back to my regulars. I've made more than enough use of my Audible Escape for the month. But anyways, so I ended up giving Wolfrain 4 stars, and I ended up enjoying that one. That's everything that I read in the last week. I hope you guys enjoy getting my thorough thoughts, and let me know in the comments down below what you read this last week. I'm hoping to get a little more manga in this week. I've been missing my manga, and yeah, I think that's everything. So I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.